We got 2,000 homes here. We should have somebody in here that has an answer for some of that stuff.
Marvin?
You're right, you're right, you're right. We need a process. We do have a standard now, thanks to Gunnar Jacobson, as I mentioned last night, who fought very hard for us to have a very tight RFP on this concrete situation. However, at finance, I learned that it didn't exactly, the bid that was chosen did not, $315,000 versus two other companies that put it for $353,000. So it's like a $40,000 difference versus our RFP. And even the chair of the committee, Mr. Baker, who's a lawyer, said it doesn't match correctly according to law. And I plan at the board meeting when it comes up to ask this present board to reject it, to rebid the bids, and see what comes in. And I think our community would have a better standing in the whole valley and the whole state if we did that. We just have to stick by our guns, and our RFPs have to count for something. Otherwise, we're going to get skinned alive. And anybody sitting here who has ever been in business knows that if you have a difference of $40,000, somewhere along the line, you're going to get cheated. Maybe rebar won't go in, especially if we have the core samples. Maybe an elastomer won't be added to the cement, and in a very short time, we'll have to redo the whole job again. And then again, more than $250,000 will be just wasted away.
John?
Well, the devil is in the details. There's no doubt about that. I'm really pleased to hear that the Properties Committee is getting its act together and starting to do the things that it's chartered to do. When I was on the board a year ago, one of my major complaints was that the Properties Committee wasn't doing enough diligence when it came to making presentations in front of the board. It sounds like they're getting their act together and things are improving, and I'm very pleased to hear that. But as has been pointed out, you need to monitor, you need to make certain that all the details that add up to getting a successful project are being worked and being monitored. How to do that? One of the issues I have, and I'll talk about later, is I think we need to really look hard at our committee structure and the scope that we've assigned to each committee. That's the board's input. That's the board of directors. We need to get that done first, and then we can insist that the committees follow up and decide who is it, whether it's the GM, whether it's someone on one of our committees, or whether it's a combination of them, who makes sure that the devil in the details gets done the way we want it.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Please go up.
Hello, my name is Jay Shafferts. I'm a member of the board. I'm your treasurer. And as your treasurer, I'm asking you, are you a conspiracy to raise our assessments by $50 a month? And if not by $50 a month, by how much? Specifically, 8 days from now, in this room, the board is going to have to consider the budget and consider how much more we ought to raise assessments, if anything. I can guarantee you that some member of the board will recommend we raise assessments in order to enhance the reserve fund. Now, help me out here. How much should that person recommend the board increase the reserves by? How much by a dollar amount should we raise assessments in order to make sure we have healthy reserves, not only for now, but into the foreseeable future? Thank you.
This question we will start with Paul.
We haven't had an increase in our assessment for 6 years. And it's difficult. I mean, right now, I lived over by the TPC golf course in a small community, and we were higher and we had a lot less. Now there are more homes here. I know that you either have to cut your services, you have to cut your amenities at some point in time, or increase your assessments. In my business life, I've always found out that you're better off to anticipate problems or budget shortfalls and increase some of your reserves a little bit at a time for a number of years, instead of waiting 3 years or 4 years down the road and then having a bigger increase because, or a special assessment even, because you failed to do what's right because it was not politically acceptable. We are faced with potentially having to make some cuts. So in answer to your question, I don't have all the facts, but I know either this year or next year we probably are going to have to do something if we're basically going to not pass along some of these problems to the next board, or if we really truly want to make sure we maintain the style of living that we have in Siena today.
Jerry?
Well, I've been an alternate on the finance committee and just had the pleasure of going through the budget process. And we're fine. Actually, we're better than fine. We're really good. So Jay, I would recommend, and you don't recommend, a dues increase. We don't need it. The reserves are fine. What's happening with the reserves right now is there are a lot of major items that have come up all at once. So last year, this year, and next year, we will be spending $1 million to $1.3 million each year with major renovation projects. $500,000 for the fitness center. There's going to be a lot of landscaping money spent. The year after that, we're only going to spend like maybe $300,000 or $200,000. So until next year, when they do the level 1 reserve study, so we really know where we're at, we don't need to do it. This year, they were projecting we were going to spend $1,700,000 roughly out of reserves. Budget committee, or the finance committee, looked at that and said, what items do we not really have to do? We cut almost $400,000 out of what what was projected to spend. So we're in good shape. We're in good shape there. We're in good shape on the dues right now. Things balance. We're putting enough money into the reserves. We're at 80-some%, which is more than fine. It's according to Richard Baker, he's saying that almost guarantees that we can't get into trouble. So I don't think it's a good idea to do that now. We have a lot of people here that are on very tight fixed income, so we need to be cautious of how we go about raising the dues in here. At a certain point, and I'm thinking probably it's going to be another 2-3 years down the road, we're going to have to look at increasing it just because of the cost of living just goes up. The cost of utilities, everything's is going to be going up. Right now, my answer is 0.
Margaret?
Not a penny of an increase at this point in time because of what Jerry just said. Plus, the NRS, for everyone that's not familiar with it, says we have to bring in a reserve specialist who's certified by the state, who knows costs, who knows replacement values. That person presents a reserve study to us. It's like with any of our expenses. Some people just say, well, we have so many expenses and that's it. You have to check every invoice and total up every invoice to know how much to budget for a certain category. You just can't pull something out of thin air. And that's what accounting is all about. That's what the discipline of finance is all about. And we just have to practice that. And if we don't practice those disciplines, we're fooling ourselves. And like Jerry said, there are a lot of people in our community who are retired for a long time, live on Social Security, will not be getting an increase at all in their Social Security this coming year, but will be getting a hefty increase in their health care costs. So if I'm on the board, I certainly will look at those kinds of things so that we do not run ahead and just raise arbitrarily our dues.
Dawn?
Yeah, I agree with basically the sentiment here. There will be no increase for 2016. From what I understand, I don't think we really need one. We've husbanded our resources fairly well. But I'd like to go off on a little tangent about that, and that is, what we spend is one side of the equation. What our income is another side. Those are the two things that have to get balanced. Our income consists of the dues, the small amounts we get for renting out our facility, which are pretty minuscule compared to our total budget, and our return on our investments, $6.8 million. There's one place where if I'm elected, I will look hard at what we can do better. Now, I understand, we're very limited. It has to be guaranteed government funds that we invest in. Nevertheless, I'm still not convinced that we're getting the best bang for our buck. And it doesn't have to be much of an increase in our percent return on $6.8 million to be real money for Siena. So that's one area I will look at in terms of offsetting perhaps future needed increases 2, 3, 4 years from now. Thank you.
Arn?
I've looked at the way we've been spending money in our operational budget, and we've been doing a good job. I see no reason for increasing assessments to run operations. I'm not so convinced we don't need to start adding more to our reserves anymore, and I await the reserve study to find that out. The tough question is, even if you had to add reserves, can we take those added reserves out of the operating budget instead of having to increase overall assessments? That's a trade-off that every community faces all the time. Well, what can we do? I'd like to suggest a different way. We elect the board to make decisions like this, to represent our interests. But this one issue on assessments is probably the single most important decision our board will make. Rather than have the board decide on their own, we should ask the board, the finance committee, and the general manager to prepare two options for the community. The first option, keep assessments exactly as they are, add to reserves whatever you need, and make cutbacks in the operating budget, and tell us exactly what you'll be pulling out and what impact on the community you think that will have. The second option, keep all the items in the budget and tell us exactly what increase in assessments you need to fund them all. And then you decide. If we can have a resident vote on elections, we can have an informed referendum on whether to choose to raise our dues or not, knowing the effects on the community. On this one issue, I'd like to have you decide rather than the board.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, then we will have closing remarks. And for the closing remarks, candidates have 2 minutes each, and we will start in reverse order from where we began, and we will begin with Don Weiss.
Okay. I hope you've all got a copy of my flyer that was out there as you walked in. If you have and you take a look at it, you'll notice I devote a good part of a full paragraph to my work history. And the reason I do that is to show you the kind of leadership I've been used to doing. When I worked at Intel, not only did I figure out what the problems were going to be, I convinced people that they were real problems and that we needed to spend money to fix them. Not only my company, but people outside the company in similar industries. I convinced them to spend dollars to basically to be able to be ready 3 or 4 years down the line to fix problems that would have occurred if they hadn't. I am the kind who look toward the future and decide what to do now to avoid getting into problems. During my 15 years at Intel, 3 years, I was awarded division awards for my ability to do just that and avoid problems. 1 year, I got a corporate-wide award for just that leadership capability. So now I look at Sienna. I think we're in great shape now, but I think we have to look toward the future at what kind of issues need to be addressed. And the first that I see is that we need to revitalize our committee structure. I will take the lead in making that happen so that we'll be prepared for the challenges that are coming down the road. I have many other ideas about how to improve our management systems, and we need your vote to enable me to work with the board to flesh them out and get them implemented.
Don?
If elected, I fully intend to assert my leadership skills to make it happen.
Thank you. Harvey?
What I didn't mention earlier was when we had our orientation, I asked our attorney if he had seen our RFP. He couldn't remember, he couldn't recall, and he didn't know. To me, that is a terrible, terrible thing, and that has to be changed. I am not running on a slate. However, I would be honored to serve on this board with either Jerry for his business background and Don for his historical knowledge about Sienna. I have no hidden agenda. I am an open book. My only desire is to serve Sienna residents in a financially responsible manner and to serve them well. I know retirees are on fixed income, and I promise to listen to all concerns of residents. People who know me know that my word is my bond. I have honesty and integrity. We have to maintain our existing properties and infrastructure, not look for new expenditures which to spend on, and just because we have the money. The ad hoc committee, the outreach ad hoc committee, has reported that Sienna has the most and finest amenities of any community that responded to their survey. I'm totally independent, an independent thinker, a problem solver. I have no other agenda than to work for the best interests of our Sienna homeowners. If you elect me to the board, I will question every issue in detail to arrive at the best course of action for our community. Thank you.
Jerry?
Okay, hold on a second here.
We'll start the timer. Now we'll start it. Now we'll start it. We got to start it while you're putting on a shirt.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for showing up this afternoon to listen to this mess. You know, if you weren't here, it wouldn't be much fun. These guys are pretty boring. And if I'm elected, I'm going to work to promote or to control spending, to promote courtesy, and to preserve Sienna's resort-like lifestyle. I think this board needs some creativity, and I mean, I didn't see anybody else come up with a design for a t-shirt or make a video. Or by the way, there's candy over there, so please take it, because otherwise I'll eat it. You know, I spent a lot of money to join a gym, and I haven't lost any weight, and I guess I found out you really actually have to go to the gym before you end up losing weight. So a couple things here.
1 minute.
Tomorrow night, the computer club, 7 o'clock, has Kelly Rossi as the speaker. Harold was here last night, Henry's here, and my brother back there. The other thing is Dale's here from the Veterans Club, and people should think about the Veterans Day dinner. It's like $20. It's a great deal. I'd also like to thank Michael, because last night we had a lot of rain here, and I think he and Peter probably got waterlogged out there trying to keep the water from running into the building there. And my new friend in the back there is our horseshoe lady in there, so I'd like to thank all of those people. Again, I hope you felt this was worth your time. If you liked what I said, my name is Jerry McElroy. If you didn't like what I said, well then my name is Woody Woodpecker.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all, folks.
Okay. Okay.
Paul?
You gotta follow Woody Whittaker. truly a special place to live. From the drive down Fiorabella with the palm trees to the beautiful view of the rotunda and the pool. My goal is to help Siena maintain that feeling. However, our challenge will be to incorporate new ideas where appropriate. Some change will be inevitable. We need to be prudent in our spending, but not compromise our values. Any changes in staffing, reduction in services, and activities will be needed to be scrutinized. As an example, we have realized some cost savings from reduction in water usage due to landscaping and the change in the sprinkling system. Our sidewalks and streets will also last longer because of eliminating damage. So there are things that we're doing. It's important to remember that the Siena experience is greater than the sum of its parts. While one club or one activity may not seem to be justified by the cost per user, when added together they provide a model community for current and future residents. After all, the real benefit of living in Siena is the friends we make and the activities we share. While I've negotiated with unions, insurance companies, and attorneys, I prefer to listen more and talk less. I have a good reputation for working with others and always keep an open mind. If we work together, we can make Siena a better place to live today and in the future. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Mark?
You've now heard from all 5 of us. We are all volunteering for an unpaid job with great stress and responsibility. Maybe we're all nuts. But I have a great respect for each of the other candidates. The important question is, what do you want in a board member? You will get from me a calm and thoughtful approach to issues, a deep respect for all residents and their concerns, and an ability to get the job done well. When you think of me, think of those 4 things: calm, thoughtful, respectful, and gets the job done. Plus, you'll get what I hope to achieve by being on the board. Better information channels, letting you know what issues are going to be discussed at committee meetings. Better opportunities for making your input count during those meetings. And better communications of what committees and the board are discussing and are doing. However you vote, hearing from what I'm hearing from all of us on stage, I believe you'll get a good board. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I agree that we have some very excellent choices, and you will be receiving your ballots soon in the mail. You are voting to fill 2 seats. When you return your ballot, you can vote for either 1 or 2 candidates, but not for 3, because then your ballot will be voided. And you must vote for 2. If you're going to vote for 2, they must be different. You cannot cast 2 votes for the same person. And follow the guidelines that come with your ballots. They are very specific as to how the ballots are to be returned, or they may be invalidated. They mentioned earlier the election message board. When you go to the Siena website, there is a tab that says communications along the upper right. If you click on that tab and scroll down, you will see the election message board tab, and then you can go on that, and if people have been posting about the election, about the candidates, that's where you will see the information, as opposed to putting it on the regular message board, which is to be kept separate for the regular concerns for this group, for the Siena as a whole. Thank you for coming. The candidates will be remaining, so if you have further questions of any of them or would like to interact, now would be the time. Thank you.
Bob Norman and those are the 2 that the times are up. Okay.